In business, you'll often hear things referred to as moats. How do we create this bubble around our little offering such that nobody else can cross the chasm and disrupt our thing? And if you're thinking castle, moat, yeah, totally. That's definitely where it came from. And I've been thinking a lot about AI and engineering and how this all where we're at and where it's going. And for whatever reason, yesterday I was thinking about moats and how our moat just was dried up. And you may be sitting there and saying, Clark, you just said our moat. And it just, I don't know, dawned on me a little bit that software has been this moat and a giant moat. You worked for a company, maybe it was your own company, you built some software that gave you a competitive advantage. And that competitive advantage was basically speed. I could do something, whatever was in my head, a little bit faster than the next guy. And thus, I had this little bit of a moat around me. And because we could do things faster, it meant we could take on more things. So then we find ourselves building an engineering team because we need developers to do that. And then the moat gets a little bit bigger because it's a little harder for others in our space maybe to do that thing. And then, but you need resources to create that. So there's this sort of flywheel effect of I've created the software because I had money to buy a team that created this moat that made it sort of hard for people to get around and replicate this. And you can see this in lots of areas, right? CRM tools, you have these big monstrosities that, sort of have so many features that they're hard to touch. But the reality is we've all sort of bent our way into using them because it had 50% of the things that we wanted, whatnot. But these moats were created. And then there's today and AI. And I could go and I could vibe code my ass to making a CRM. And we could argue about the legitimacy and the complexity and all that kind of shit. But I can create the same software, theoretically, in a matter of months, days, minutes. And then you have to say, well, what's the moat? What if I don't need that CRM because I only needed 50% of the things and I was able to create the software that I needed for my business tailored to the way I wanted? Then what? If you're a software company or a company that really leans on software, then you go, what's my moat? Do I need a moat? What's the new game? And I think back to a time where I was working at Allstate and I sat down with the CTO at the time, and I got in this argument, if you will, of Allstate. My pitch was Allstate was a software company, and he was like, "We're not. We're an insurance company." And he was very adamant about that. He's like, "If you want to be for a software company, then you need to go to a company that writes software and ships it, a Microsoft, Microsoft, which is where I ultimately ended up." But his point was, we will only ever be an insurance company. Yes, we write software, but we are an insurance company first. And I just looked at it and was like, no, because of the level of software that we write, we have more software engineers than we do finance people, and I forget the name of the number crunchers, but whatever. We have more engineers than we do that side of the house. And that in part was just that was the expensive piece that needed a lot of labor, but the sauce was still over here with the actuarians and whatnot. And so here I am 25 years later looking back and go, he was fucking dead on. They're an insurance company. And if you fast forward to today and you look at the resources needed to make some of those things, that software that created that moat, you don't need as much of that anymore. So then you just step back and go, how what's the point? Right? Well, we get back to some of these core principles, the first principles of our business. Like, why does it exist in the first place? We're kind of taking the I have to use you, and we're saying we have to be competitive, right? We provide knowledge and service and speed. We fix problems. Like, that's why companies exist. Somebody's using their resources, their cash, in paying you to solve a problem. And we do this all day long. Like, money just solves time. We're saying, I don't want to become a farmer to make my food because I don't have enough hours in the day. So I'll use some of my money and pay the farmer, and he'll give me the things that he had. I know that's a rudimentary example, but it's one that we all experience on a daily basis. When you really think about it, that's businesses overall. And I guess you could take the farmer and go, the farmer's moat is the fact that he's got the most land and he's the only person here, so he's the only person that I can buy from. But if you're in this engineering world, I need you to think about the fact that AI is changing the landscape that we're in, and you need to think about how you solve problems, because that's why we exist. We exist to take things out of people's heads and translate that to tell a computer to do it faster so that we gained an advantage. That advantage was quality, speed, and now with AI, some of that has been sort of leveled, and you just need to ask, what do applications of the future look like? What does your relationship in the company look like? What does the company's relationship look like to the user, right? If you think back to users, it used to be call a person, do a thing, punch numbers in. Give that back to the person. And then we started creating SaaS products. We're like, fuck you, don't call me. Just go to my website and you do it yourself. And now that's evolving again. Like, what if the AI is calling your company to do the thing, to make the exchange? What if it's another program that integrates with you to do the thing because the AI is doing the thing, or because we now just create these like micro apps to interchange with one another because I have like my highly specialized CRM and I don't need to interact with those because I don't want to pay the money or created it faster. I don't know. I know this, the world is changing. I know this, you as a software engineer, your role inside of development is changing. I know that AI is the worst that it'll ever be today, and it's going to continue to revolutionize the way we think about things, the way we interact, the way we build, and what we do. Those moats have dried up. And I don't think it's bad. It's bad if you're complacent and you're like, I depend upon those things. But if you look at it the other way, the level of competition just became greater. The level of creativity to solve a problem and do a thing is exploding. Our speed to market exploding. Pretty damn exciting. Like, you are sitting here watching all of this change, and you can say whatever, this is hype and this will never go away and this and that. Well, that's what people said when they were riding horses. And then a decade later, they were driving cars.